Hello, my name is Pontus Berg, and I am going to educate you a bit on media consumption using your own local media. Back in the days, we consumed media when somebody else has broadcasted it. So when the TV show was on or a movie was on, we watched it when it was when it was kind of sent in the cinema, or when it was broadcasted on television, or when it was broadcasted on radio. Nowadays we moved more over to streaming services, so we watch our TV shows and we watch our movies on streaming services, and we listen to podcasts more than we sort of listen to radio. I'm not saying this has substituted the old channels, of course, because they are still there, but a predominant part of usage has moved over to the new channels, and where we are in control when we want to watch something or listen to something, rather than when there is a slot in the available mechanism to distribute it. We are in control of when now. That's sort of the new thing. So but in a lot of the streaming service, or all of the streaming services, are provided by somebody else. And if we are keen to kind of maintain our own repository of media, so we have our repository of our own movies, our own music, our own pictures, and so on, then kind of distributing that, or making consumption easy or convenient or nice looking, that is a challenge, and there are a number of solutions for this, and this is what I'm going to kind of address today. This is something called Plex, which is also what I have in the background to make sure that you see that this is Plex. But it's not only Plex. There are a number of kind of support tools that enhances the way to consume your media via Plex, and I will go through that. So this one has basically two segments. One would be talking about Plex and how Plex works. The second one is going through the additional tools that are convenient, that enhances it makes Plex more convenient. It's difficult to kind of describe that shortly, but if you watch the entire thing or you rewind to the second part, then we will go through the support tools for Plex. Plex is of course totally agnostic when it comes to the content. It doesn't really care if you own the rights to share something via Plex, so it wouldn't care if this was your own recorded GoPro movies, or it was something that you downloaded from Pirate Bay or any of the other places where you can obtain kind of material where you don't own the right to actually watch them. And I will not moralize over this. I'm just assuming that you are fully in control over if you are keen to break law or if you're keen to follow law. Plex actually doesn't care. So, but for the purpose of this, I am assuming that you are using it only for legit purposes. Otherwise, you're on your own, even if the mechanism would be the same as what I describe here. Right. Let's see here. So my first picture is this one. This describes sort of the structure of Plex. It's sort of three layers. First, you have a repository of media file. That's where you have your videos, your TV series, your music, your picture, and you structure them in separate folder and however you like to have them structured. The other part is where sort of Plex comes in. That is the server part. So the server part runs on a machine, and it scans your media. It downloads, let's call them thumbnails or posters for movies, or if you're using it for TV series, it will also download descriptions of the respective episodes and metadata such as the actors and all of that, and store that inside sort of the server solution. And it's also, well, before it knows what to download, it of course needs to identify what is this media file is called this, what movie is this, or what picture is this, or what TV series, and what episode of what TV series is this. And Plex is doing a fantastic job identifying which media is what. It's absolutely brilliant. You can manually override if it got it wrong, because I mean eventually it would happen sometimes, but it's rather rare that it misses out. So that is what the server is doing, and typically think of the server and the media as sort of a combined thing, because the server works directly with the media and it needs to have like constant access to the media as well. But in order to actually consume the media, you need a client, and so this isn't my view of my Plex server. The client is a picture I picked from the internet, so it's somebody else's media, just to make that clear. And this could be, I mean, the hardware you need to run this. First of all, you can run this all on a computer. So if you have a desktop computer, or if you have a laptop, you can have your media files, and then you install the server on it. Well, when you install Plex, you basically install the server side of it. But a more convenient solution, which makes your collection or your repository more portable, that you can access it from more places in more scenarios. You should have like a server running somewhere where you have the media. And if you have a lot of media, you probably need something bigger than a normal desktop. You might need like a network attached storage, a NAS. The issue with having your media on a network attached storage is that if you run the server also on the NAS, and you have multiple people watching media at the same time, several of the NASs don't really cope with that well, especially if your client wants the media in a certain resolution and you have it on your server in another resolution. Then the server needs to do transcoding, and that's really heavy on the CPU. And most NASs don't really have the power in their CPU to actually do transcoding, especially not for multiple streams at the same time. The clients, and this is where the beauty sort of comes in. On a computer, you could run it via like a dedicated app, but you can also run it using a browser. So if you just access the server using your regular browser, your Chrome or whatever, then the UI would look something like what you see on the picture on the top. That is sort of the rendered view of the media that you have. On the left, there is sort of the categories and that's fully definable. So typically you would have movies and you would have TV series and pictures and music, the categories there. And then when you select movies, which I presume they have done here, you would see a number of movies, the title screens or posters or something really clearly identifying the movie. And if you click on that, it will show you who are the plot of the movie and when it was released and also the characters playing so the actors playing. And if you click on the actors, you would see the other movies or TV series that particular actor has been involved in. Not all of them, but the ones that you have in your collection. But so that is when you run it like on a computer. But there are of course also apps for pads and mobile phones. So there is an iOS app and an Android app. And you can consume them there, but you can also use, if you're using Android, you can use Chromecast to send the the stream that you're watching to a bigger screen. So that would be one of the ways, if you have Chromecast on a bigger screen, where you can consume your media, and you use your mobile phone and pad only basically to control what you will be watching there. There is also something called Android TV. It used to be part of Nexus Player, but now there is a Chromecast version that includes the Android TV. It's basically Apple TV, but for Android. That's a unit, you connect it to HDMI like you do with Chromecast, but rather than controlling it over a mobile phone, it renders a UI in the from the little unit and renders it on your TV, and you control it by a little remote, pretty much like an Apple TV. There are also Plex applications for smart TVs. So if you have a smart TV, you just install Plex and then you control it via your normal TV remote control. And so the client then would be something that sits inside your TV. You don't need to, you just install it and then you're done. It keeps updating itself, and your smart TV becomes really smart, because then you can use your own media directly using the Plex server then. My own setup here is I have a NAS, so a network attached storage, and I do have a local area network, so cables connecting my computers. So there is a pretty good connection between the machine that runs Plex, the server side of Plex, and where I have my media. I use an HTPC, a home theater PC. That's basically when you take a computer, you connect it to your TV, and then you have a keyboard. So it's just another PC, but you use your main TV as the screen. That one is on 24/7, so I might as well throw in additional software that runs there. So it's for me, that's a handy way to have Plex server, because there is more horsepower in that unit than in my NAS. I had Plex server on my NAS before, but I mean, when I was watching something and one of the children was watching something, we would have lag and issues with that, just because the Plex server running on the NAS didn't really cope. So that's why I've separated them into two physical machines, one the HTPC and media on the NAS. And to be honest, the client I use the most is the one that sits in my TV. So I have installed the Plex TV app inside my TV, and that works absolutely beautiful. In the bedroom TV, I have one of those Chromecast with Android TV, the new one, and that also works absolutely brilliantly. I can warmly recommend the Chromecast with Android TV in them. Really good. Yeah, so in the server you can define the users, and you can define like any number of users. You can define local users, and you can basically define remote users. So the family, you would have a separate account for like all members of the family, because then when you start Plex, like on the TV, all the home users get little icon, pretty much like Netflix, where you select your profile, and there you have access to whatever you have access to. But you could actually invite friends and others who would also be legally entitled to access the media you have. And here you can discriminate. So I mean, if you have media where you only have the rights to watch it yourself, you can have that in one repository, and then media that anybody could watch, and that would be fine. Then you can have that in a separate folder, and you would only allow the remote access to on a per user basis to what you are allowed to share with them. That's also, I mean, that's fully flexible, and you can tag individual movies, and then you could say that movies with that tag is not something you would share with anybody. So you can do it on like a directory level, and you can also do it on individual movies, which is very handy, I can say. So how you add media, that will be sort of up to you. If you produce them yourself, like your GoPro movies, and you build your home movie library, that's one thing. Or if you download them via torrent, legit, or if you download them via your local TV services streaming service, which I guess you then would be allowed to also share. Again, this is sort of how you get your media is not really key here. That's up to you to decide, and where your moral boundaries go. But what Plex is then really smart at doing is identifying the media. What is it? Based on the file name you have given, it can most of the time or kind of distinguish what this is. That's pure magic how it does that. But if you are a bit more OCD when it comes to naming stuff, especially if you download via torrent, or if you leech it via your local TV station's file names, that might not be what you want them to be, and it might not be consistent so that they are easy to understand. Then there are separate programs for that. So you could have something called FileBot, and there is also a program called TV Rename. And to some extent, especially TV Rename is a bit overlapping with the additional tools that I'm going through afterwards. But for my purpose, I only use TV Rename to do just that, rename. And it has the name TV Rename because that's where it started. It was only for TV shows, but it's now also supporting movies. So it can rename both. Okay, let's see if I can manage this thing now. It should be like that. Oh yes, it worked. Pew. So a few of the support programs I would suggest you add. Once you have installed your on your server the Plex server side, download Sonar. And I don't know why they want the two consonant and in the end. You would see that 4 out of the 5 programs here would have a double consonant for no apparent reason. But yeah, whatever. That's probably something that one did and then everybody copied it. I don't know how that came about, but that's how it is. So Sonar is a program that keeps track of your TV series. So when a new episode is broadcasted, it would look through. It would identify that one is now available. It's been broadcasted somewhere across the world. And then it will look for missing episodes. It will do basically like a plug fill to ensure that you have all the episodes of the TV series that you are following. It can automatically trigger torrent downloads for missing episodes. So and we will get to Jacket in a while, but you can basically define a number of torrent sites where you have accounts, and it will fetch the TV series for you based on that. You can trigger it manually as well. It renders a UI which looks a bit like Plex. I would strongly recommend that. If you're watching TV series and you want to ensure that you have a local copy, because you never know when your local streaming service is not providing it anymore, then Sonar is the tool for you to ensure that you kind of keep your own local copy. Radar that handles your movies. So if you have a version which is rather crappy quality, Radar will, for a period of time, search for something which has a higher quality, and it will ensure that it downloads a higher quality. You can set a threshold. If you don't care about like the 100 gig 8K version, you are fully content with the 1080p, then you can set that threshold. So when you have the 1080p, stop looking. I'm done. It's absolutely fine. I don't look for anything that is fancier than that. So that is what Radar is doing. I should mention on Radar, at least when I installed it, this might have changed since, because that is sort of a long time ago. Radar assumes that your repository is in a very flat structure. So one directory or one folder per movie. It cannot handle subdirectories, and it cannot handle if the same movie is in two different folders. Then it will be really confused. It will say, no, that movie I already have, so I don't know what that is. And there are several reasons why you would want like multiple directories. If you have like children's movies where you would have, and if you're not natively English speaking, so in my case, for children, I might want to have the English version, because if I would see it, I would probably want the English version. Whereas if I would have kids watching it, they probably would want the Swedish speaking version. So and unless you have like a media file where both audio streams are in, then you would be out of luck. If they are two discretely different movies, you would have to have them in two different directories, and then you would confuse Radar. That's where I have the English version as the predominant one, and then I move the kids file into the to kind of the directory of the English speaking one, because then Radar wouldn't look for it. The same would be applicable if you have a 2D version and a 3D version. I take the 3D version and I put it inside the directory of the 2D English version as well, because then Radar would ignore it. Plex would find all three of them, but you need to handle them because it would see it as one big entry. It would see it basically as duplicate, but you can manually override that in Plex. So I'm not saying that is the perfect way of doing it, but that's how I do it at least. The third one here is Bazaar. Bazaar is a tool that checks, you define your sonar and radar instances so that Bazaar knows the media you have installed. So it's not directly accessing Plex. It's more a sort of a tool that is associated with sonar and radar. And that one downloads subtitles. I mean, if you are English speaking and you are fine watching English movies without subtitles, that's probably not a tool you want to use. But if your hearing is a bit impaired and you want to ensure that you have access to subtitles, or if your native language is not the native language of the movies you typically have, then it might be handy with the support of subtitles. And Bazaar fetches that for you. And again, you define the different sources where you sources of subtitles out there, and Bazaar would do that automatically for you. It sits there in the background downloading everything and adds them to the directory for you fully automatically, just in the background. Jacket, again, that's basically also a support tool for sonar and radar. Think of it like a proxy between torrent sites and the programs that would need to access torrent sites. So in sonar and radar, you could define the same list of torrent sites, or you just define Jacket, and then in Jacket you define all the torrent sites. So if you have Jacket installed, sonar and radar points to Jacket, and then you do all the configuration in Jacket, and they will be available both for sonar and radar without doing like multiple installations of the same torrent credentials. Again, super handy. The last one I don't even know how to pronounce, like Tautuli or whatever. It sounds Finnish. I'm not sure. Yeah, I've read the meaning of it and I don't remember. You have to Google that yourself. So that is sort of a statistics program for Plex. You can see which user watched what, when, and if they watched like 5 minutes, made a 3-minute pause, and then continue watching it for 20 minutes, pausing, and then watching another 5 minutes, and then not seeing the end of the movie. Any sort of statistic of the usage of your Plex server is something you can access using this topology. I use uTorrent, or that's how you could say it, but U is actually not U like the letter U. It's the Greek letter me, so you should basically read it my torrent. And that connects to Sonar and Radar. So Sonar and Radar triggers downloads based on your torrent program, and there are a number of supported ones, and my torrent is one of the supported ones. When you have downloaded, it's your own obligation to kind of stop sharing or stop seeding the movie when you think you've done it. If you're downloading from one of the more public sites, it could easily be several hundred times. So you would have a ratio of 100 to 1 or 1 to 100, whichever way you express it. But so what both Sonar and Radar are doing is that they create the download inside your MyTorrent, and then whenever it has downloaded all of it, it copies down to your repository. So you can remove the tracker and data from the download, because that's not really valid anymore. The real data is already moved into your repository as soon as you have reached 100% of download for that file. So this is how I handle my media. I should do like that. I use Plex I use my media file on my network attached storage. I have a Plex server installed in the HTPC. Basically, for you, it's my PC running 24/7 that sits in a cupboard. And then I use a number of different clients, predominantly the one built into my Samsung TV. On the HTPC, I am running Sonar, I am running Radar, I'm running Bazaar, I'm running Jacket, I'm running Tautuli, I'm running my torrent, and also in order to kind of clean up or address my OCD for naming the different TV series and movies, I use a program called TV Rename for that. So that's how I do it. I would welcome in your comments any sort of other approaches to maintaining and the structure of your collection, and also how you access your collection. So I would be most interested in your comments. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.